Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasati. Hare Krishna, welcome. We're reading Bhagavad-gita. I'm reading Bhagavad-gita as it is by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. That's the translation and edition I'm using. And we are in the second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized, and this is text 23. Nainang chindanti shastrani, nainang dahati pavaka, na chainang klirayantyapo, na shochayati marutaha. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, not withered by the wind. Yes. Second chapter is called the contents of the Gita summarized, but it is very much emphasis is placed on the description of the soul, the jiva, the atma in the body. And this is one of the aspects of the jiva. Purport: all kinds of weapons, swords, flame weapons, rain weapons, tornado weapons, etc., are unable to kill the spirit soul. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, etc., in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapon of the modern age are classified as fire weapons, but formerly there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Fire weapons were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to modern science. Nor do modern scientists have knowledge of tornado weapons. Nonetheless, the soul can never be cut into pieces, nor annihilated by any number of weapons, regardless of scientific devices. Yes, so if we read the Mahabharata, if we read more about this battle of Kurukshetra, we find that the fighters, they were not primitive fighters just using, clubs or arrows, and they were not our modern type of fighters using different kinds of guns. They were using mantras, so they would aim their arrows and they would strengthen the arrow with a mantra that had different effects. We will probably hear more about that, especially when we enter the Srimad Bhagavatam. There is one instance where a nuclear weapon is aimed by mantra at one individual. But the person who was casting this nuclear weapon wasn't qualified, because you're supposed to be able to cast the weapon, cast it, throw it through your mantra. You're also supposed to be able to withdraw it. This caster, he was unable to withdraw it, but that is a separate story. But all these weapons are described, and a qualified warrior at that time had access to all these types of weapons, and a battle could in that case be very interesting. Now we watch science fiction movies or fantasy movies where we have wizards throwing fires from their fingertips, and we've never seen that in real life. But actually in the Vedic time, all sorts of mystic weapons were there, available through mantras, which is a separate branch of military intelligence that we do not have access to at this time. Nevertheless, the fact is that the soul cannot be touched by either of these weapons, because the soul is not of that nature. Fire can be counteracted by water and so on, but the soul is not touched by any of these elements. The soul is always separate. The Mayavadi cannot explain how the individual soul came into existence simply by ignorance and consequently became covered by the illusory energy, nor was it ever possible to cut the individual soul from the original Supreme Soul. Rather, the individual souls are eternally separated parts of the Supreme Soul. Because they are atomic, individual souls eternally, sanatana, they are prone to be covered by the illusory energy, and thus they become separated from the association of the Supreme Lord, just as sparks of a fire, although one in quality with the fire, are prone to be extinguished when out of the fire. We keep coming back to these Mayavadi theories because they are very prevalent in spiritual circles, in spiritual thought in the modern age. We have this idea, and when we're in illusion, we're covered, and when we stop being in illusion, we again become that spiritual nature. And that is true. But that is, how to say, it's not the full picture. It's not that we somehow, we're covered now, and by this covering we have become individuals, tiny little individuals without connection. I don't know what you are thinking, how you're feeling. If you're very rested and happy, or if you're having a fever. I cannot tell, because we are not. We are individuals. There is a difference between you and me. There's a difference between me and Krishna. So that supreme spiritual energy, we're all parts of it, but we are individual, separate parts. And when we become free from the illusion, we stay individuals, but we are individuals in full spiritual knowledge, in full spiritual realization. Yes, and if you go from the other direction, if we are seeing this undifferentiated, omnipresent, it's, how to say, well, this spiritual energy that is all one, why would it stop being all one? Why would you parcel out little pieces of the oneness and make them feel like individuals? This is neither a logical explanation of what happened, nor is it confirmed by the scriptures. We are always individuals. We can understand all the spirit souls as part of one category. We're all Brahman, we're all part of the spiritual energy. And that is true. But when we study it closer, when we study it properly, we will find out that we are all individuals. So, here we can both understand the fact that the soul cannot be killed by any weapon. And this is very much, of course, central to the situation of the Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna is saying he doesn't want to do his duty in protecting the kingdom from falling into the wrong kind of situation with the wrong kind of rulers, because he doesn't want to kill anyone. And therefore Krishna, he goes from all the angles you can reply to this doubt. This is one of the angles. Actually, you can't kill anyone. The soul cannot be killed. And in detail, the soul cannot be killed by fire, by water. You cannot drown the soul, because it's not material. The body will drown, the body will burn. The body, you hit it hard enough on the head and the body cannot recover from that. But the soul is not touched. That is one aspect. The other aspect is we are all these spiritual individuals. If the soul cannot be cut, then the Supreme Brahman can also not be cut. We were never cut off from the Supreme Brahman. Krishna, we are emanating from Krishna as a separated energy. So we were individuals from the very, very beginning. And we're staying individuals here in the material world, and after liberation we will remain individuals. And any liberation that does not take this into account is not a complete liberation. In the Varaha Purana, the living entities are described as separated parts and parcels of the Supreme. They are eternally so, according to the Bhagavad-gita also. So even after being liberated from illusion, the living entity remains a separate identity, as is evident from the teachings of the Lord to Arjuna. Arjuna became liberated by the knowledge received from Krishna, but he never became one with Krishna. No. Because there are different stages of liberation. There are different ways of understanding liberation. One thing is, we're in this material world, and that is very troublesome. And then we want to become liberated from the troubles of this material world, and then we want to negate them by giving up everything that is troublesome, and that is one form of liberation. Rather, it's one understanding of liberation, because that's one aspect of liberation. But being liberated from this material place, what is the next situation? What is the spiritual situation? That we find information from in the Bhagavad-gita. We are eternally individual persons with an eternal relationship to Krishna. And without taking that into account, liberation cannot be complete. That sort of liberation is, technically it's called liberation, but if we, from being in this material situation, if we fail to find shelter, to accept our next situation, if we are just floating in some kind of lack of material problems, we're not actually, how to say, our liberation will not be steady. The nature of the soul is to be a person, and eventually we will come back to that, the soul having desires to interact, and that desire is not fulfilled within the impersonal Brahman, and therefore that liberation is not complete. But here, though, we hear from Krishna, and we can find that, which is more than liberation, actually. Liberation just means freedom from problems, really. But we can find more than freedom from problems. If you are very sick, if you're in the bed and you have a fever and your bones are broken and everything is wrong with you, of course, the first step is to become free from all the suffering. But then you're not just going to stay in your hospital bed free from suffering and do nothing. Then you're going to get out of your hospital bed, enter your regular life with your regular activities and your friends and so on. So in the same way, in this material world, we are considered a little bit deceased. We are very limited by our material existence that sometimes causes us acute suffering, and sometimes it's just a kind of passive suffering that comes from not being in touch with our spiritual nature. So, all right, let's remove all the material problems, but then what do we do? That's Bhakti Yoga. That's when we want to develop our loving relationship with Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta